Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to Instrumental Intel. I'm your host, music producer Achickwitbeatz, and I'm so glad that you're here with me. Today's episode has music industry news, instrumentals by me for your inspiration, and later I'll be joined by my special guest, Poww, and we're going to talk about navigating labels, legacy, and longevity in music. And personally, as a chick who loves Something's Going On by U&V back in the 90s, I'm really excited to be bringing this episode to you. So before I go ahead and drop that first beat, I'd like to give a shout out to my home station, Grander Radio out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And with that, let's go. Hey, this is music producer Achickwitbeatz, and you're listening to my podcast, Instrumental Intel. Alright, I'm back with the Music Biz Brief. First up, Spotify just rolled out its biggest free tier upgrade in 6 years. Free mobile users can now search and play specific songs, pick tracks from playlists and albums, and instantly play songs shared by friends or artists. All features that were previously locked behind premium. There are still limits, like daily caps on on-demand minutes and no queuing. Spotify hopes these changes will keep younger listeners engaged, boost ad revenue, and eventually drive more upgrades to paid plans. Premium still accounts for 90% of Spotify's revenue, but the company says the free tier remains a crucial funnel for growth and a safety net for users who drop out of subscriptions. They've also rolled out a new US-only feature called the Drop Weekly, blending video segments from its human editors with personalized release recommendations, refreshed every Friday for both free and premium users. At the same time, the company is pushing back against Unwrapped, a third-party project that lets users sell their listening data to buyers in exchange for crypto-linked rewards. Spotify argues the initiative violates its developer terms and potentially infringes on its Wrapped branding, raising bigger questions about who truly controls listener data in the streaming era. My 2 cents, it should be the artist. Moving on. Next, Sony Music Group and Spotify have signed new multi-year global licensing deals covering both recorded music and publishing, including a direct US agreement with Sony Music Publishing. That deal moves Spotify away from the controversial CRB bundling model, which had reduced songwriter royalties, aligning Sony with Universal, Warner Chappell, and Cobalt, which all recently struck similar direct deals. Executives from both companies say the agreements aim to boost songwriter compensation and pave the way for new features, with hints at enhanced audio and visual formats, possibly including music videos on Spotify's roadmap. Also, a new report from Midia Research warns that music discovery on social video platforms isn't translating into lasting fandom. Their global study of 10,000 consumers found that while over half of listeners streamed a song after hearing it on social media, nearly half didn't, often because short clips felt like enough. Among 16 to 24-year-olds, discovery is more likely to stall at the snippet, with fewer following through to streams, saving tracks, or exploring artists. Midia cautions that social platforms are competing with, not feeding into streaming, and that the industry only has a narrow window to turn fleeting virality into real long-term fan engagement. Word to the wise. Depending on your goals, going viral might not be all it's cracked up to be. Next, major labels including Universal and Sony have settled their lawsuit against the Internet Archive over its Great 78 project, which digitized and streamed vintage vinyl recordings online. The labels had accused the archive of running an illegal record store by making thousands of copyrighted works available, while the archive defended the effort as a cultural preservation under fair use. Terms of the settlement are confidential, but both sides told the court they expect to formally dismiss the case within 45 days. Also, LimeWire has acquired the infamous Fyre Festival brand, promising a tongue-in-cheek revival that focuses on tech, community, and real-world experiences. Once notorious for file sharing and later relaunched as a digital content platform, LimeWire says it wants to own the meme of Fyre without repeating past failures. The company plans to reveal its reimagined vision in the coming months, with a waitlist already open for fans who are curious about what the next chapter will bring. Next, a new study from the UK's Music Managers Forum estimates that managers generate nearly $974 million in value for the UK music industry, with every £1 spent on management services creating £8 across the sector. The report highlights that artists, songwriters, and producers capture the majority of this value through higher earnings and opportunities, while the rest trickles out to labels, publishers, agents, and other professionals. Alongside the findings, MMF announced a new tiered membership system and the launch of a certification program aimed at setting professional standards for managers, backed by major industry players including Universal and Sony. Also in news, Earbuds, a music-focused social app popular with Gen Z, has raised $5 million in new funding led by Alexis Ohanian's 776. The app lets users share what they're listening to in real time through a widget connected to services like Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, and Audiomack, while adding social features like reactions, chat, and customizable profiles. With over 15 million downloads and 5 million monthly active users, Earbuds is positioning itself as a music social network that streaming giants like Apple and Spotify have struggled to build. Next, YouTube used its Made On event to spotlight new artist tools and a major milestone. The company says it's paid out over $100 billion to creators in the past 4 years and is rolling out features for musicians to better connect with superfans. Coming soon, release countdowns and pre-saves, exclusive thank you videos, and behind-the-scenes clips, plus limited merch drops for top listeners. This puts YouTube Music in direct competition with Spotify's own superfan initiatives, reflecting a bigger push to reward loyal fans and deepen artist-fan relationships. And finally, Universal Music Group's Republic Records is moving deeper into gaming with a new partnership with developer Nothing Projects Interactive. Together, they're launching Only Hands, a real-time mobile fighting game where Republic artists appear as playable characters and their music directly shapes the gameplay. Set to drop late this year, the project aims to merge streaming, fan engagement, and in-app economies to turn music into a core part of the experience rather than just background audio. It's the latest example of how major labels are blending music with interactive platforms to create new revenue streams and cultural touchpoints. Alright, that's it for the Music Biz Brief. I'm going to take a quick pause for the cause, and I'll be right back with my special guest, Poww of UNV, right after this. Keep it locked. Hey, I'm Achickwitbeatz, multi-genre music producer and strategist to indie artists and labels. Visit Achickwitbeatz.com for resources for artists and instrumentals in various genres available for songs, vlogs, blogs, podcasts, themes, TV, film, commercials, and more. Once again, that's Achickwitbeatz.com. That's ACHICKWITBEATZ.com. Let's make something happen. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to Instrumental Intel. I am your host, music producer, Achickwitbeatz, and I'm excited, thrilled, and delighted to say that I have in the virtual building with me today, Poww.
Hey.
Yay. So I know who you are, and I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you. But if you could, just give everybody a little bit of background as to who you are and how you got involved with music.
Well, let's see. Without dating myself, I've been in the music business for probably right around 30 years. My first number one record was with the group UNV, Universal Nubian Voices. It was a song that I penned myself, a song called Something's Going On. Some of you may remember that song. But that was my first number one. We've gone on to have a few other big records, Straight From My Heart, So In Love With You. Since UNV, I have began to start my own label, a record company called Poww Records. And we have been in existence for about 15 years doing what we do. We released several different projects, but I myself release music, probably at least an album once a year. So wow. I keep my catalog pretty stocked, and I'm up to about 17 albums over the years, probably about 456 pre-published songs in my catalog. So wow. That is my thing. Poww, of course, solo now, doing my thing. I still tour with the guys from time to time. But that's who I am. That's what I've been doing. I have a new album out now called Bentley Music, the Bentley Music Project, which is a project of remakes of number one records from everybody from Glenn Jones to Tony, Never Rains to Alexander O'Neal, who reached out for me a couple of days ago. I was really glad to hear from Alexander O'Neal. But that's who I am, and I'm happy to be on the show. I've heard amazing things about the instrumental show. I probably have some instrumentals to shoot you at some point, but I'm just glad to be here for sure.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm glad to have you, and thank you for taking time out to come and speak with me and share your experience. So, once we connected, and when you said like, oh yeah, I was a member of UNV, we had this song, I'm like, yeah, I remember that song. Like I knew the words.
We go.
I think I was I think I might have been heading into 7th grade or something like that.
Okay.
Had me singing along, watching the videos, mourning relationships I never even had.
Right.
There was so much feeling and just heart to it. So if you wouldn't mind discussing a little bit about like kind of what was your process back then to write something that's so powerful?
That was a song written directly from the heart. I was dealing with that situation at that time. I was 19 years old, and I had finally gotten what I thought was the girl of my dreams, and come to find out that she was more in like with a friend of mine rather than me. And so I quickly discovered after being with her for a little bit that something was going on. And, so not really heavy into love thinking at that point, but I mean, the words came to me so easily just because I was kind of experiencing that situation 100%. Yeah. So that's where it was kind of birthed. Everything I write is generally a story, and that's kind of how I write. I write from a story perspective and generally from the heart, because I feel like that's the original format of making a creative ballad.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because you did just kind of walk through all those emotions, like you could see the progression of how things were happening. And I used to try to hit those notes. They didn't really work so well for me, but but yeah, definitely a jam. Like I said, I used to record like BET or what's that, like Yo TV Rap. So I still have some of my VHSs kind of stashed around. Just
there we go. Got to dig one of those out of the archives.
Yeah. So like, oh yeah, I remember the video and everything.
For sure.
I feel like the 90s were just a different era for music. I mean, the way I see it, a lot of us got to come up on like the older music that was good, and then to like just have those incredible songwriters playing while you helping clean up the house on Saturdays, whatever the case may
Absolutely.
be. Like, I just feel like it's such a rich time. I know everybody feels like that about their era, but I think we're right about the 90s.
Absolutely. The 90s was an era of music. I mean, of course, you had your early Motown types of vibes early on, but 90s was a nostalgic era of music that really, really resonated a lot with a lot of people. And people to this day, I mean, just I'm still touring and doing things, you know, with music that I've been releasing, but even music that I'm always requested to do something's going on and a couple of different things from UMV. And like I'm getting ready to go to Kenya in Africa
Nice.
in November. And, one of the first things they ask is, are you going to do a couple of the classics um, from UMV? And I was like, of course, because I penned most of probably 90% of our music. So it
Oh
was one of those
wow.
things where I just, I want to keep that era alive and really introduce it to a new generation. That's why we did the Bentley Music Project, because I want
Yes.
some of these classics to still be, because we kind of redid them and gave them a little twist and I kind of made them my own.
Yeah.
But we wanted to make sure this younger generation gets an opportunity to witness some of those classics as well.
Yeah. Since you mentioned that, that was like one of the first things that I noticed. Because a lot of times when people do covers, they like completely switch it up. And sometimes,
Right.
you be singing along to the notes and then they zig when you zag or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. But like, I really think it was tremendous. The way that you still made it your own, but it was still familiar. It wasn't too far from what we knew and just added like a different spice or flavor to it.
Yeah. And that was by design because we wanted to make sure that was one of my elements to enhance my touring. Because generally, now most of us 90s artists, if you're still doing music, a lot of times what you're doing is you may have a good single, but you're doing the majority of your touring. And that's where
Mm.
most artists are really making their money. So, I mean, for me, it was one of those things, no brainers. A light bulb went off when I redid Sailing by Christopher Cross.
Yes.
I started doing some shows with him on cruise ships. And I was
Nice.
like, wow, I see, I may need to do a few more of these remakes. And then as I did a couple, I started getting calls and I ended up going to London, to Paris this year. And I've been all over the country, really even abroad, based on this remake album. So I'm like, I think I got some here. So I did the whole album worth of nothing but remakes and it's really working out well.
Yeah, it was just incredible. Oh, okay. So you mentioned the Christopher Cross song. How did you make your selection of which ones to actually cover?
You
I was
know,
really surprised to hear intro. I was like, oh, that was my jam too. Yeah.
I was really cool with Kenny. I mean, all of intro, Jeff and Buddy. And it was such, Kenny was a native Detroiter. And that's where
I
I
didn't know
reside.
that.
Yeah, he was a native Detroiter. So that's where I reside. And so, I always had love for Kenny and it was such a tragic loss, to
Yeah.
lose him early on. But I always loved that song. And I wanted to do something that had a really, really 90s nostalgic. And I just felt like he never really got his flowers like he should have. So
Yeah.
I was like, let me remake this song. I was listening to it on Sirius XM one day, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna remake that because I love that song. And I just messed around and did it on TikTok, singing it live, and the audience it went crazy. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna
Wow.
remake this. And since then, we did a little short video of it, like a teaser, and then within 3 days, it had over 24,000 views on YouTube. So I was
Awesome.
like, yeah, we're on to something here for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even realize he was from Detroit. I'm in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So
Yep, native Detroiter.
that's what's up. So yeah. So how about for some of the other songs? Like were these just people that you?
Alexander O'Neal, I grew up a big fan of Alexander O'Neal. I got through some long nights in college listening to that Heartbreak album from Alexander O'Neal.
Mm,
So Sunshine was definitely one of my favorites. Was heading heavy rotation. I used to find myself singing that song in talent shows and messing around. So when it was thinking about remakes, it was one of the first songs that came to mind. And I was like, I
okay.
really want to do this song, but just give it a little twist, to just kind of bring it up to date. And I did it, and it worked out really well, so well that Alexander O'Neal reached out for me on YouTube, and said he loved it. Great job. And I was like so honored that he would reach out and even, say that. Because most times when you do a remake, you better do it right if you're doing a classic, because people will talk about you if you don't.
Yes.
So it worked out well. It worked out well. He was happy. Same thing with Freddie Jackson. Longtime fan of Freddie Jackson. When I was young, I used to try and emulate and sing his records back in the day. And I ran into him at a casino that I was performing at about 6 months ago. And he sang that song. And unfortunately, he's going through some health issues. And I'm really praying for him. And it was one of those things where I felt like, man, this guy is a legend. And a lot of this younger generation doesn't know anything about Freddie Jackson.
Right.
So I thought, you know what? Why not? I'm going to go ahead and remake this, put this on this album. And the same thing. He heard it and he loved it. Maybe about 2 months ago, I was in Dallas and he was there performing, and he called me up on stage to actually sing Rock With You tonight with him. And I thought that was a huge honor. I met him before, but that was a huge honor to be able to sing and join the stage with him doing that. So it was outstanding.
That had to feel incredible.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does.
So, okay, if we can maybe just back up a little bit to talk about the early days, since you mentioned performing, what was that like when you were first getting started out with UMV? Like, did you have any stage fright, nervousness, jitters, butterflies, or you just kind of been into it from the get-go?
When we started this, we had been singing as a group for about 6 years trying to get a deal. And it just so happened that we independently, when I first wrote Something's Going On, we released it in Detroit first. And the record kind of took off. I've been singing all my life, but I really didn't have a lot of jitters. I tell people all the time, I have a little butterflies in the beginning until I hear that first scream, and then it becomes like second nature and you just get right to it. But I mean, thinking about it, when we got signed to Madonna's label, Maverick Warner Brothers. So we were signed to Madonna's. We were her first urban act on the label at Maverick. So when we put the record out here in Detroit, it blew up independently. We sold about 14,000 units. And then labels started coming, trying to get us. And it so happens that Madonna's manager, Freddie Demand, flew here out the blue. We didn't tell us we were coming. We lived in a little house in Detroit in the hood on Finkel. And he came, this big black limo pulls up, two big bodyguards get out, come on, knock on our door. And they say, hey, is UMV live here? And we're like, yeah. He's like, we've got Freddie Demand who wants to see you guys. And we're like, Freddie Demand, who is this? Guy gets out looking like the Godfather. He walks up in this long black coat suit with the Dob hat. I mean, looking like a straight gangster.
Wow.
Comes in and says, I'm Freddie Demand. I'm Madonna's manager. And we got a lot of buzz about you guys. A lot of labels are trying to get you guys. We'd like the opportunity to put the record out. If you can sing live, pack your bags. We're going to LA tomorrow. So we had this thing where we used to sing For the Love of Money a cappella, like the New Jack City version, the Levert version. And we just broke into it a cappella, broke it down. He was like, pack your bags. You guys are going to LA. We want to sign you tomorrow. And at the time our manager's name was Mason from Mason and Company, who was on the premier stations here in the city, WJLB. Okay. Mason is now on Sirius XM. He's on Soul Town in the morning, and he also still on the radio here, 105.9 KISS. But he kind of got us going, and from there, I mean, we went from performing at clubs to opening for Madonna at Wembley Stadium in front of 100,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
Surreal. When I tell you surreal, I mean, dreams come true. Met Michael Jackson backstage at that concert. Wow. Just amazing opportunities came from that. And Maverick was the catalyst that helped us. We went number one 6 months after signing with Maverick. But it was an amazing journey. So not a lot of stage fright, just a few butterflies in the beginning. But that experience, kind of met everybody who's anybody in the industry. Had the opportunity to work with people like, Brian McKnight, even R. Kelly when R. Kelly was R. Kelly. I mean, a little bit of everybody. I mean, we've had some really experiences. Tour with everybody from the 90s. I mean, everybody from Intro, Silk, Joe to Z, Boyz II Men, to the Extreme. All the groups that were out at that time, we had the opportunity to travel with and be on tour. So amazing experience, which kind of taught me the business in that, which is why I'm still in the business today, because that experience, Freddie DeMann, who was a huge mentor to me, just gave me a lot of wisdom and a lot of game to take with me long after Maverick. And he said, listen, the music business is not promised. You got to be, a student of the business. And if you do that, you'll have the opportunity to go a long way with your songwriting and everything else. I mean, I produced Reggie Braxton's album, the gentleman that you interviewed a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago. So Reggie is a long-term friend of mine, and got an opportunity to work with him and help him produce his first album. And then worked on this album where he really wanted to get into it the correct way. So it's doing well. It's doing well.
Yeah, that's so awesome. You said that you learned a lot of the business when working with Maverick, but I just wanted to kind of add or ask or highlight, if you will, the fact that you said that you guys have been singing together for 6 years. You put the song out independently before the labels came. And I don't think a lot of independent artists actually understand how important it is to have that tenacity and to not wait for a label to come do it for you. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did you guys know to stick with it and not get upset because you didn't have a deal until 6 years later? Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. The one thing that we did, we knew that at the time it was a different era in music. It was a time when if you were talented and you could get to the right person, you could get a deal. Nowadays, it's so very saturated with so many things, and it's so, we have so many different outlets. But we knew back then that the only way to really have the opportunity to make some noise was to try and, release the record independently first. And if we could do that and create enough of a buzz, then we knew that record companies would come and see us. So we spent our own money. We scraped up. We were doing every little thing we could. We all had little jobs. We worked at the little Detroit mall. I was at the toy store. My brother was at a record store. I mean, we did every little thing we could do to keep money going so that we could do our little 4-song demo and then try to get it on the radio. But the break came from getting the song on mainstream radio. When WJLB took the opportunity to help us, they took the record. Steve Hegwood at the time, who was the program director, took the record and said, man, this is a hit. I don't know about the rest of the world, but this is a hit. And I'm going to put the record on. And then within 4 weeks, we were the #1 requested record in the city of Detroit. So Detroit being a major market, we were getting the attention of the region. So Cleveland, Chicago, and people started asking questions. And then before you know it, we were off to the races doing what we had to do to make it happen. So it's so important for nowadays, especially because the industry is so different. There's so many, you can get a deal. It's much harder, but you have so many different avenues and so many venues to get your music out through the internet and different ways to work and program the records that you don't necessarily even have to have a major to do what you do. I mean, nowadays it helps, of course, because having that major machine is always something important to push the record, because a lot of times people don't have the finances to really go after radio like they should and just market and promote the video or whatever, or even make a quality video. But all those things are key essential as independents now doing it, where if you can make enough of a name, you can have majors coming for you. And if you can make enough of a name and really make some things happen, you can stay independent if you can move some records. I mean, the one thing that I've been able to do over the last 15 years independently is sell units based on the following I've built, not only from UMV, but my own brand as J Poww, doing what I've been doing. So, I mean, I'm comfortable right now in my skin of being independent. I do have some major situations happening right now that I'm in the fold of, just getting ready to do, but I'm maintaining my independence in doing what I'm doing. So anything I do will be a joint venture type deal, to make sure I can maintain some of that structure and some of that independence where I still control my masters. So that's huge. And anybody independent young artist should definitely keep that in mind. I know it's hard because you have to financially be in a place to do that, but nowadays you can record in home studios and there's many opportunities to make it happen without always having a major.
Yes, absolutely. Some great advice. Thank you for sharing that wisdom.
Not a problem.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's just, I don't think a lot of people actually understand the grind and the dedication that it takes to be able to do what you've done. And I think that even today's industry is still quite similar because even when you are looking for labels, they're going to wait for you to have that following and to be able to prove it. They're
Absolutely.
not going to do it for you. So,
They're looking for that
yeah.
algorithm, those analytics to make
Yeah.
sure that you have a following, that you have some sales, that you're generating some real fan base on social media and things like that. So things like that that you can do as an independent, that you can control, take advantage of those things. Get out there and make it happen, 100%.
So much wisdom. Thank you. Um, so yeah, I definitely again just thank you for taking the time to come and share.
Oh, no
And
question. I'm
most of the
honored.
people who listen are either independent artists or producers or creatives in some kind of way. And I'm a firm believer that with everyone's unique experience, if we all share our stories, we can kind of learn and grow from each other. So yeah, I really appreciate you doing this. And I know you did kind of mention some of the things that you have coming up, but I just kind of want to give the platform over to you so that way people know what to be looking out for from you if you want them to follow you,
For
whatever the
sure.
case may be.
The one thing I always um, like to make sure I'm accessible. So producers that are making quality music, I'm available to reach at JPoww of UNV, and that's JPoww, JPOWW of UNV, Instagram, John Powell on Facebook, JPOWW, John Powell on Facebook, which is my government name, John. But everybody calls me J Powell. So it's J Powell of UNV for everything: TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook is just John Powell. But I have J Powell Music. We also have Power Custom Collections, which is my company. And it's Power with two W's always. POWWERMOVES at Gmail is my email. So any producers who are looking to work on any R&B and hip hop, because I work with a few different artists, I'm open to music, to listening to some independent artists. I'm always open to hearing new talent because we're always looking for that next thing. So I'm open. Once again, J Powell of UNV, and that's JPOWW of UNV, one word. And you can reach out to me. I'm accessible, and I have, like I said, I'm touring right now, so I'm getting ready to head to Africa, as I mentioned. Um, and I'm right now. I'm taking dates. I have a show coming up at the Motor City Casino here in Detroit. Another show coming up at the Soaring Eagle next month in October on the 25th. Just continuously working. But my website, which is powercustomcollections.com, same POWW, Power Custom Collections, all one word. I know it's long, but
Mhm.
um, it has all my tour dates and schedules. So that's powercustomcollections.com. I also have a business. I have a clothing line and a seat company.
Okay.
So I do a little bit of everything. In the music business, you got to have a couple jobs to do what you do. So
Absolutely. And you're running a label on top of all that. Like you got a
absolutely.
lot going on.
Got to keep it moving. Got to keep a check coming.
Love it. Yes. Well,
No
yeah.
question.
Again, thank you. Let's see, you mentioned the album that you just put out. Do you have another one lined up that you can talk about just
I
now?
do.
Or okay.
Well, the Bentley Music Project just dropped about a week ago. So that's out now. This shirt right here that I'm wearing is one of my singles. It's called It's a Vibe. And it's an up tempo kind of groove, not up tempo, but mid up tempo. Everything that you hear from me right now, you can find on YouTube, or I'm on every digital platform. So everything from Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, anything digital outlet I'm on. YouTube, if you go to my YouTube, which is J Powell of UMV again, or J Powell Music, I have probably 50 videos. This last independent record, I shot a video for every song on the album, even
Wow.
my remake album. So you can find those on YouTube under J Powell, which is J period POWW. And my new project that's coming on the horizon, probably after the first year, which is all original songs, is a song called, or an album called Soulful Melodies Plus Bars. Because I'm also a quote unquote MC. Most people don't know that, but
Okay.
when they
I
hear it,
didn't
they'll be like,
know.
okay, wait a minute, this guy can really rap. So Soulful Melodies Plus Bars, which is something on the horizon. But right now we're working the Bentley Music Project, and check it out. Find me on all your digital outlets. I guarantee it's a winner for any events, any nights out hanging out with the friends, whatever. Put it on, you'll know every song.
Love it. All right. Yeah. I mean, incredible project. But yeah, as soon as I knew who you were, I was like, I already know this is going to be good. I couldn't wait to hit play.
Well, I
And the
appreciate
first
it.
time I listened to the album, I never do shuffle. Like, I want to hear it the way that the artist intended it. And man, it was a treat from start to finish. So,
I appreciate that.
yeah,
No
thank
question
you for
about it.
what you do. Thank you for still doing it. And,
Absolutely.
I'm
God is
hoping,
good.
yeah, amen. But I'm hoping this is just part one and maybe I can have you back again soon.
Absolutely. No question about it. Let's do it. We can do a remote sometime where I'm at a venue or at a concert or doing something or whatever. Maybe when
Yeah,
I'm in Africa or whatever the case may be. Who
I'd
knows?
love to. Just let me know. I
Absolutely.
think
Done
they
deal.
might be like 6 hours ahead of us. I'll
Yeah,
make
they
it
are.
work. I'll make
They
it
are.
work.
There we go. We'll make it work.
Yeah.
Well,
All
I
right.
appreciate you. I want to let you know. Thank you for the opportunity to come on.
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
very appreciative. I don't take lightly the opportunity to join anyone on their platform, and so I'm very thankful for you having me on. No question about it.
Thank you. As a fan, I'm so thrilled that you did come on. So yeah, I was kind of fangirling. I was like, I'm afraid to
Yes,
ask,
indeed.
but I had to.
Well, give Makita a good report. Tell her
I
I was a little
definitely
late,
will.
but give her a good report.
I definitely will.
All right. Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, and that's a wrap for this episode of Instrumental Intel. I've been your host, music producer Achickwitbeatz. And once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank my special guest, Poww, for coming through and sharing his story and dropping all those gems. And I'd also like to thank my home station, Grander Radio, out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Make sure you come back next week. I got more goodness lined up for you. So, till next time, you know where to find me. Tune in, tell a friend, and I'll see you then. Peace.